Good morning. This is not a new fashion statement. This is a chain that I sometimes carry, and I imagine you do too. And the chains that we sometimes carry are the chains of unforgiveness. This isn't that heavy, but I've worn some pretty heavy chains in my day. I remember when I first was offered the opportunity to take Edwene Gaines' class, The 4 Laws of Financial Prosperity, Spiritual Prosperity, at Unity of Dallas. I was so gung-ho. I was like, I'm ready to get into this prosperity consciousness. I had my notebook and my pen. I was sitting on the front row, gonna get an A in that class for sure. And I opened my booklet, and what did I see was the third rule, the third law. Forgiveness. I was like, what? I didn't come to forgive. That wasn't what I thought I was going to be asked to do. Oh my goodness. And I heard other rumbling. You know how you sometimes hear rumbling in the crowd? And this was a unity class. And it took me a bit to realize I'm not the only one that has a struggle with forgiveness. But during that opportunity that we embraced, we released some of those chains and we cast them aside and said, I am going to let go. I'm going to release what's burdening me. I'm going to release those blocks that are standing in my way. And that's what I'm here to invite you to do as well. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't continue to engage in this process over and over. It's not okay, I forgave, I'm done, I can coast now. Sometimes people try to do that, and it doesn't serve them very well. So a few weeks ago, was it August? Oh my gosh, that seems like a long time ago already. I talked to you about my election intention, and I shared with you a book, What It Takes to Heal, How Transforming Ourselves Can Change Our World by Prentice Hall. I'm going to keep referencing back to that because we still have election ahead of us and all the way in November, my goodness. And I imagine that some of us are going to have some forgiveness activities to engage in when we get triggered on social media or when somebody confronts us about how we could possibly think that our candidate was the right one or whatever other issues are going on in our world. There are so many opportunities to forgive. And I want to give you a bit of an overview of what this can do for your life, both from Edwene Gaines' perspective, whose book we're following, as well as some other noted authors and philosophers and modern day visionaries. There are so many messages about forgiveness and activities that I had a stack of books on my kitchen table. I've already had to forgive myself today on the way to church because I left a stack of books on the kitchen table. So it's an ongoing process, right? At least for me, maybe it is for you too. So one of the ways that we can lift up our world and create more peace in the world, according to Marianne Williamson, is by forgiving. She says that the practice of forgiveness is the most important contribution that we can make to the world. Wow. You may agree with that, you may not, you may have to reflect on it for a while. I know that we're all proud of all the highlights that we may hear when we get introduced or acknowledged, like Ben and Marilyn are being acknowledged today. They're probably not ever going to say, she was the most forgiving person I ever knew. But that is such an important attribute. It can be so hard to begin the process. But what happens as you continue to let go and to work through some of the grudges that you've held? You get more opportunities. You have more of that positive energy. You have better health outcomes. I looked into the information from the Mayo Clinic, one of the most esteemed health organizations in our country, and they had a list this long of all the physiological outcomes that you could achieve to improve your health by being a forgiving person. Now, most of us, if we could have a quick fix to have better health and greater prosperity, we would be racing. If that was on sale at Walmart right now, we would be beating a path to the door. And yet when we have to implement it, when we have to do the hard work, it can feel a little more overwhelming. And I can understand your resistance. I printed out, anybody have anybody or know anything about 12-step programs? Okay, most of you have raised your hand. Well, back when I first started going to Al-Anon in the 1980s, yes, I really am that old, we didn't have these kind of things. We could go online and print out handouts. Now, you can go and get worksheets to do your 4-step. Anybody know what the 4-step is? A fearless and searching inventory. Whoa, and it's got page after page after page. And this was one of the more abbreviated ones. Resentments. Yeah. Fears. Personal relationships. And all the things that we did. This is the part that gets people stuck. If you hear people say, I am stuck on that dadgum 4-step, what they're stuck on is their part in it. It's easy to list all the people or places or situations for whom you're holding resentment, but when you have to acknowledge your part, that can cause you to trip a little bit or to take a deep breath at least. But there are other ways to move through the process. There's a fear inventory prompt sheet. So when you illuminate all the fears that you have, fear of God, fear of dying, fear of insanity, fear of loneliness, fear of disease, fear of alcohol, fear of relapse, fear of self-expression, fear of authority, and that's just one of about 50. So what can we do if we want to be the cushion and the light for so many people? Because if we haven't forgiven ourselves, guess what? We're going to have a hard time forgiving other people too. It starts with us, as so many of the spiritual principles do. We look inward. Now, where is Donna? There's a couple of handouts. There she is, way back in the back. Has everybody gotten their handouts yet? I'm a former teacher. I guess I'm a licensed Unity teacher, so I guess they could say I'm a current teacher. But I like handouts. I like take-home things that can help you. So I provided with you, I promised you I'd provide 2 things. A list of activities and affirmations that you can continue to implement, not just during the rest of today, but the rest of the week, the rest of the month, the rest of 2024, and even the rest of your very long, joyous, prosperous life as you continue to embrace this process of forgiveness. So there's some forgiveness affirmations. Now, these are just ideas and suggestions. If you don't resonate with them or like them, feel free to create your own. And there's a second list as well. Thank you all for engaging in this process. Here's what Edwin Gaines, our renowned prosperity guru within Unity. She has held so many programs, done so many talks, written books, written workbooks. I have the workbook, and I found it online. I looked for weeks, and I finally found it online. It's called the Practice of Thriving Class Workbook, and it's a PDF. So I will give anybody that wants it that website, because I don't want you to have to search for as long as I did to locate it. But Edwin says this: on our spiritual journey towards prosperity, we are aspiring to a forgiveness that is so deep, so full, and so complete that no traces of any bad feeling at all remain with us. No bad feelings remain. Does that sound amazing? And if you ever listen to Edwin, and I mean there are countless YouTube videos and other videos from different Unity centers around the country and beyond, that you can hear her message. Now, I will warn you that she does tell the same stories each and every time she does the talk. Could I have one?
Oh, of course.
So I can remember what, this is the resentment inventory. Resentment. Resentment. That's kind of a heavy term, isn't it? But yet we carry these resentments, these bad feelings, these bad vibes towards ourselves and other people. Well, I taught a section on forgiveness during my self-care class that I taught for Unity Worldwide Spiritual Institute for many years. And guess who the very first and most important person on the list is to forgive? Yourself. And guess who most students that I talk to, in fact, I would say 99.9%, said was the hardest person to forgive? Themselves. You all are doing great. You know all the answers because you've lived this. You know this. You felt the experience of it. But when we harbor grudges to others or ourselves, it robs us of our peace of mind. And Edwin is quite clear that there is no prosperity without self-forgiveness. She says if you have debt, look at who you're harboring resentment toward or grudges toward. It's an issue with forgiveness. It's about your own consciousness and your own unwillingness to let go. So we know that we want to be serene and peaceful and loving, and we want to share and exude this positive energy. But it's always going to be limited by judgmental attitudes, criticism, resentment, anything that we're harboring, either towards ourselves or other people. But it is a state of mind. So one of the things that she encourages us to do every single day is to do a writing in a journal or on a piece of paper at the end of the day. Now, I know some of you are going to say, I don't like to write in journals. I don't have the time to write things out, or my hands are too stiff, it doesn't work. Whatever. Do the best you can. Maybe try writing it in your opposite hand and see if that works better. But she is convinced that putting it down in black and white is a powerful way forward towards forgiveness. As a last resort, if you're absolutely convinced this will never work for you, then type it out. Or use the voice memo feature on your phone and record it so you can listen to it over and again. But she says the most powerful thing to do is every night before you go to sleep to say, have I put anyone outside of my heart today? We ask that question during meditation. Do this prayerfully, being completely honest with yourself. And then if you find it that you have, write it out exactly what it is that you want to forgive. I put blank out of my heart, and now I am ready to forgive. I am over being the victim of my own unforgiveness. Edwin believes that when we get ourselves stuck in unforgiveness, that creates a victim consciousness. when we're saying, I just can't forgive, I can't forgive. And trust me, I've been there. I remember at one point during a particularly painful betrayal of trust and a relationship ending, I made this statement right off the bat, first thing that came out of my mouth: I will never trust another human being as long as I live. Pretty unforgiving, right? Pretty victim consciousness. Well, over time, I did some healing work, and I modified it to I will never trust another man as long as I live. That was my inch-along progress. And then over time, obviously, I have a relationship, I am married, I got over my total unforgiveness of men, and I did a lot of work. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying truly your life depends on it, your health depends on it. So, anybody know Jack Kornfield, the Buddhist meditation and mindfulness teacher? He has a wonderful, wonderful 14-minute video called 12 Principles of Forgiveness. Well, Jack Kornfield, and it's Jack, Kornfield. Just Google it. You'll find it. In this 14-minute video, he's sitting at a table or in a chair, and he's like me. He has lots of papers, and he's going through them. He'll pick up a paper off the floor and then talk about them. Then he'll wrestle around and find another paper off the floor. And he's so personable. He's so sincere. He's such a heart-centered human being after all of the years of work he's done on mindfulness and meditation. And he gives us such great ideas for being more forgiving and for actually taking the action that's necessary. Because there's even a quote that I found, and it's like, everybody likes to talk about forgiveness being a nice concept until they're doing the forgiveness work. And it's easy to tell somebody else, oh, just let it go. But when it's us, it feels a little bit more difficult, and it takes a lot more effort. So, I got through forgiving myself for leaving those books, and I will make the list of the ones that I would have brought to share with you available. I could email them to Sandra or Valerie or whomever, and then make them available. Because or you can even text or call me, or send me an email. So as we begin to forgive, we need to get into a mindset and allow the intention to just be the powerful guiding force. Because we don't want to pay dearly with our own health. Your mental health will be better. You'll have lower blood pressure if that's an issue for you. You'll have less stress and anxiety. And I don't talk to anybody that doesn't say, oh, the anxiety is just through the roof. Your immune system will be stronger. Your heart will be stronger. And you'll feel better about yourself. If you want to be a magnet when you walk in a room, do your forgiveness work. Because people will sense it. They'll feel it. And you will have the courage and the faith and the confidence to be the one to step up when you need to. It's amazing. When you let go of that bitterness, it can be incredible for your spiritual consciousness. Now, Eric Butterworth, who is one of our most revered unity ministers and authors and leaders, he also talks about how important it is. And he shared something that I had not heard before. And that when we talk about the Bible quote, when Jesus said, when he used the word adversary, that he's not referring to a person, but he's referring to our adverse thoughts. When we think negatively about another person or see them as somebody that's against us or opposed to us, those are just those crazy thoughts, those error thinking that we call it in unity, where we're getting confused. So when we let go of those adverse thoughts, that frees us up and that allows us to move forward. So he says that to agree with means to settle with and to deal creatively with the situation. Maybe what we do in our mind, and this is another model. I know we talked about Marianne Morrissey's model. We have so many different options to follow, but there's nothing and no one against me. The work of Unity ministers Jane and Gary Simmons has the similar approach, doing the work to process. How am I making somebody an adversary? Again, how am I putting somebody outside of my consciousness? So I have more quotes. I have so many quotes. You know, Jesus, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you so that you may be sons of your Father. Unforgiveness, the bottom line is it frustrates your divine potential. It keeps you blocked. It keeps you chained. I flew in yesterday about 4 o'clock to DFW, and I had a suitcase that I had checked, and there was a guy standing there too, and he had all this luggage, and he was trying to get a cart. And he said, well, you know, I travel with too many suitcases. I have too much luggage. But I get 2 free bags and 70 pounds, so I feel I may as well get what I'm paying for. Well, that's one way of looking at it. But it's also a heavy thing that we carry. And I've done that. So how can you continue to work this process? It's something that we have to do every day. Like we read the daily word every day. Like we take our vitamins every day, that we get our exercise every day. We can engage in the process of forgiveness. And it will sometimes require support. Maybe there's a support group that you can join. Maybe there are other people that you trust that could be your prayer partner or your forgiveness partner, because sometimes sharing it with somebody else helps. Now, I know for a fact that isolation is one of the most harmful things we can do to ourselves. When we isolate, when we keep things buried inside, when we tell ourselves the lie, truthfully, that we're the only one that's ever done this, had this, been there, whatever, we are cutting ourselves off from all the support and all the love. So I just encourage you to be kind to yourself, to love yourself, and give yourself that greatest gift of all. And that is to say, I love you, I forgive you to yourself, and then extend that same grace to the people that are in your lives. I look forward to celebrating with you in a little while, and I bless you as you go through your week. Namaste.